Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 374th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have former Marine Dr. Stanley G. Robertson, the Quit Doctor. Previous episode we had Jonathan Edwards. He's an American living in Canada, but he was an Olympic athlete. And we got into some great stories and thought processes around what does it take to perform at that kind of level and how can you apply that in business. So make sure you go check that out. Coming up next after Dr. Stanley Robertson is Carson Cook. He wrote an interesting book, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's a short book. He hit me up on LinkedIn. It took a little while to get connected. He actually lives overseas in Asia, and interesting dude, interesting approach. Interesting entrepreneur. So we'll just say that it's interesting. All right. How's that? Coming up after that, I'm working on a book review, and then we'll bring up Michael Fossey. Michael is one of the sales managers at my sponsor, Rainmakers. If you go to thesaleswhisperer.com/recruit, you can learn all about them. But it was great catching up with Michael. They are still in the startup phase, but the founder has a successful track record of launches. And they are in a couple of major cities right now, including San Francisco, where my son is, where I'll be heading up over Memorial Day for his graduation from college. But Rainmakers, they have an interesting approach. And you as a candidate, if you're looking for a sales job, you can protect your identity so your current company doesn't know you're looking. And even your previous company. But they release candidates in batches every couple of weeks. And what that does for you as the hiring company is that you know that the salesperson has the intent to leave. And as we talked about that, I'd never really considered it that way, but it makes so much sense. If somebody just kicking the tires, kind of seeing what's out there, or are they really interested in making the move? The numbers that they are tracking on, he says their average is 22 to 23 days for companies, for their clients to bring on a new hire versus 42 days in the San Francisco area. He gave me some interesting numbers. If a sales rep is carrying a $750,000 quota, then it's costing you a little over $2,000 per day to have that seat empty. So if you can save 40 days, that's or 20 days, then that's $40,000 in revenue you can recapture or not lose by being more efficient, more intentional with your hiring. So check them out. So thesaleswhisperer.com/recruit will take you to a special landing page for companies that are hiring and for individuals that are looking to get a new sales job. All right. And as the salesperson, you don't pay anything. As the company, you pay less than you would with a regular recruiter, but more importantly, you get better candidates faster. So, like I say, good, fast, cheap, pick two. So you get the best of all worlds with them. I've been talking about as well the 30-day sales growth. I am knee-deep in bringing over the content into the private group, and man, it's been a bit overwhelming, if I'm honest with you, in a good way. I am digging in. I am finding so much content. I knew I had a lot of stuff. It's kind of like when you're cleaning out the basement or the attic and you run across things. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I literally created the referral unit this week and uploaded multiple PDFs. And one new document is 8 pages long just on referrals on top of the other PDFs that I uploaded, on top of new content I'm creating for it. So you get the original content, you get an updated 8-page form, updated several PDFs, and that's just one unit. So it is taking me a little bit longer to pull everything over, but only because I can't leave well enough alone. So this is totally updated. And then, I take your questions in the group. So, and I keep raising the price. So as I add more content, the price is going up. So save money now. And regardless what the price is right at this moment, if you're doing this before the end of 2019, it's a one-time payment. Once this is totally built out and I keep raising the price, come 2019, I'm changing it to an annual subscription. So you're going to pay more and you're going to pay that every year. Now, still, the value's there. It's still going to be the least expensive with the most access to the founder of any sales program I've seen out there. And you get more direct access to me through the group and asking questions. But it'll be an annual renewal. So come join us, all right? 30-day sales growth. I keep adding content. It's a place for you to grow. Later on, I'll talk about the keynote speaking and consulting. I just got back from Jacksonville last week at an association, so that was cool. We'll talk about that. But you're in for a treat with Dr. Robertson. Like I said, he's a former Marine. We had a little technical difficulty here and there. I think I was able to edit everything out. We got cut off for a bit, and this was our second run at it. So he's a great Marine, great PhD, a lot of information. He just doesn't play with technology very much, but don't hold it against him because this is not the technology podcast. It's the sales podcast. So let's bring on our guest. Dr. Stanley G. Robertson, author of Quit, The Last Principle of Success, all the way from Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Hey, Wes, I'm fabulous. In fact, I am outstanding and getting better.
Man, I tell you what, you snuck in on me. I mean, I don't usually have Marines. I really don't have attorneys. And now you're a Marine attorney. I mean, and accounting. Oh my God. Should I really be doing this? Do you have like Jedi mind tricks? How'd you trick me into this?
Well, actually, when we first talked, you did not want to do this. And then once we talked for a minute and I gave you an idea, a little bit more explanation of what the concept of quitting was all about, then you said, hey, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. Let's do it.
All right. So I got your book here. Thank you, sir. So your website is Quit, The Last Principle of Success. What are you talking about? Thomas Edison said we got to do it 10,000 times, and we got to put in 10,000 hours to be an expert, and we got to turn our weaknesses into our strengths. And now you're saying we should quit?
Absolutely. What I'm saying now, I am not one to go against Thomas Edison. So if Thomas Edison is saying do it 10,000 times, I'm going to say, yeah, that sounds really wonderful. Let's do it 10,000 times. However, what Thomas Edison was doing when he said, let's do it 10,000 times, is he was talking about, he had a goal. His goal is, for example, to invent the light bulb or the filament or whatever it is he's trying to do. So he was not talking about, and I'm not talking about quit going for that goal. So in other words, I would not suggest that Thomas Edison quit trying to invent the light bulb. But I would say that every single one of those 10,000 times, on time number one, Edison was doing something. Whatever he was doing, he discovered at some point, this is not going to work. And what did he do? He quit. So in essence, Edison quit 10,000 times because he could have proceeded on the path number one, path number two, path number three. And I am suggesting that when we try to reach our goals, when we reach the point we understand this is not working, then we need to stop. We need to disengage from that thing and then figure out the next thing. And that's what Thomas Edison did. So my suggestion is that we, in fact, Americans, need to be a nation of quitters. We need to quit fast and quit often. And that's what Thomas Edison did.
But how do we know? Maybe the electric or the incandescent bulb was just impossible. How do we know? I mean, for hundreds of years at least, I mean, man-powered flight was impossible, right? I mean, the internal combustion engine had to be made and other materials for strength of the frame and whatnot had to be made. So even if something isn't overall impossible, maybe it's impossible right now or even for our entire generation. How do you know the difference? How do you know it was the wrong test? You got to tweak the filament, make it a little bit thicker, make it a little bit thinner, blah, 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 versus, oh, give it up and go invent a new typewriter.
Right. Well, I think there's two pieces to your question. One is that there is something that we all do in life. We have a destiny. We have a path. Some people may call that their purpose. I think that the first thing we have to do as individuals is we have to figure out what that thing is that we might consider our purpose in life, our purpose for being. Once we figure that out, then we can determine whether we ought to disengage or not. Once you determine what that purpose for your life is, then you ought to get on that path. For example, if you believe that you are here to be a pianist and your purpose in life is to make it to Carnegie Hall, well, as you proceed on that path, you're going to do a lot of things that you may have to disengage from. However, if you feel that your purpose is to be on the stage at Carnegie Hall and your fingers flowing effortlessly across the ivory keys, then you're going to have to continue on that path. On the other hand, there are many things you're going to do along the way. There's teachers you're going to engage. There's lessons you're going to take. You may engage in other activities, but any activity that takes you off of that path toward your life's goal, those are the things you have to disengage from. Now, so I say that there are times when you should recognize when to quit and when not to quit. So as I mentioned, the main thrust is that this is my goal in life. If that's your goal, it's kind of like if I'm going to go from Chicago to Florida, if I'm going to make that trip, I'm going to have to stay on the path. Now, there's going to be roads that take me off and sidetrack. Those are the times when I need to recognize I'm veering off the course. I need to quit and get back on track. So the specific things that I recommend that you should know when to quit is, for example, if you're working on something, and even if you consider this is my life's goal, and you get to the point where the thing that you're working on is either a dead end or that thing is causing you, like you dread doing it. When Thomas Edison was inventing the light bulb, I would presume that he enjoyed that experience, whether it was the successes or the failures. He had some kind of fulfillment out of that activity. If you're working on something and you're not getting any enjoyment, it is a dead end. You dread doing it. When you go to sleep at night, when you get up in the morning, while you're doing it, it's dread. You're stressing. Then that's a time when you should be quitting that activity and thinking about something else that you need to do. Now, on the other hand, I'm not suggesting that we should quit just because it's hard or just because it takes a long time to achieve. That is when you should not quit. Now, that's going to just build character. The thing is hard. It's taking a long time to reach your goal. You should not be quitting just because of that. That's going to help you. That's going to build your character. That's going to make you more competent in your subject area. So those are times when you should not quit. But again, you ought to think about disengaging if there's no future in it, if it's a dead end, if you dread doing it, and there's other reasons and other times when you ought to think about quitting something.
But I mean, how do you know, right? My family likes watching American Idol, right? And there's people that like that they'll return to the show 2 or 3 times, and they'll make it to Hollywood. They just won't make it to the top 20. Right. But obviously they're good, but are they good enough? Are they good enough to make a living, to have a life as a musician? I mean, you see stories all the time. Hey, I'm a 10-year overnight success. I'm a 20-year overnight success. Should they just go back to school? Should they just go work in a cubicle? Should they be a music teacher? Because there's
no such thing as an overnight success.
Right.
Everybody that's working toward their goals, whether it's 10-year, 20-year, whatever it is, that person is doing something to get them where they want to be. And everything that you're doing is adding. When you do something, our life is built on a series of experiences. So when you do the first thing in life and then you do the next thing, those two things link together. They actually couple up to give you the experience that you need to do the next thing. and you continue doing that. So every experience builds on your prior experiences, and then they all join together to put you where you are today. So if a person is going to be a success, that person can do whatever it is they're doing. If they're trying to determine, should I continue doing this? I've been doing it, for 10 years. I've been doing it for 15 years, and it's not working. They should not disengage from that just because it took them 10 years or it took a long time. They should disengage if they reach the point where they believe themselves, and this is internal, this is not external. So this is not someone else judging you saying you're not good enough, because that does not matter. You should not stop just because someone's saying you're not good enough. But if you decide for yourself that this is no longer bringing me joy, in other words, you want to engage in the journey, not so much the destiny. So if your goal is to be on American Idol or be in Hollywood or whatever it is, then you will have to determine, are you enjoying that experience? In other words, is the trip, is the journey satisfactory to you? Is it satisfying? Is it giving you the fulfillment that you desire? If that journey is not fulfilling you, and you think, I'm going to be fulfilled when, that's the time you should quit. In other words, if you think I'm going to be fulfilled when I reach the top, I'm going to be fulfilled when I make X amount of dollars, I'm going to be fulfilled when I become a movie star, you're in for an upset. On the other hand, if you are enjoying the process, you're enjoying the experience, because I'm afraid that what we do is we live our lives in such a way that we do not engage in the present. So that means you're always living for the future. So forget about the I'm going to be happy when scenario. And if you are happy now, if you're trying to get to Hollywood and you're doing the things that you need to do along the way, and you are being fulfilled during that time, then you're on a good path. If you're not, you need to think about disengaging.
Can someone figure this out on their own? Do you need like a trusted mentor to kind of slap some sense into you, or is this something that has to be found out on your own?
Well, I think both. I think that people can find this out on their own. However, mentors and coaches are always good, because sometimes we are too close to the issue and we can't see ourselves, what's happening to ourselves. So I think it's always good to have some outside coaching, mentorship, someone who you can bounce ideas off of. If you find that person, then that is wonderful, and you're going to be the better for it. If you're on your own, you're in isolation, it's going to be very difficult. One of the problems is you can't learn something new by yourself. Now, that outside influence does not necessarily have to be an individual. It can be a book, it can be a tape, it can be a documentary, it can be a journal article, or it can be a person who you talk to. But you have to have some outside influences in order to develop and to grow. So you will need that person. And again, it may be in a different form. It may not necessarily be an individual, but you're going to need some outside influences if you're going to grow, because there's no way for you to learn more without learning it from some external source. Then you can internalize it, you can digest it, and use it to make a good decision.
I wish you were around to tell me not to lick that frozen flagpole. Man, that took me a long time to get unstuck from that thing. Where were you in my moment of need?
Yeah, that type of thing is a problem. The licking a frozen flagpole is something that many people do. Now, assuming a frozen flagpole is a metaphor. In other words, if you're doing something that is really bad for you and you don't recognize that thing is bad, like sticking your tongue on a frozen flagpole. Well, obviously, this is a bad thing, but if you don't recognize that is bad, you're going to need some intervention from somewhere. And that happens. Normally, people who stick their tongue on a frozen flagpole are very young, right? Because they haven't had the experience. It's no different than sticking your hand on a hot oven.
It was 2 weeks ago. Now you're flagpole licking shaming me. I'm not going to tolerate this.
Yeah. Well, it's just because now your chronological age. Your chronological age has nothing to do, and I don't mean you personally. I'm talking in general. In general.
No, my wife would agree. Go ahead. This is me. Go ahead. She's nodding over here. So yeah.
Right. So in general, in individual's chronological age is not necessarily a determinant of their competence, of their intelligence level. So again, I mean, I know some people that are very young who are extremely intelligent, well-versed, and knowledgeable. And then I know some people who are much older, but they're much less mature.
Yeah. Yeah. What do they say? Some people live, 80 years, and some people live, 1 year 80 times, something like that.
Right. Yeah. I think that this idea of quitting, the notion that we ought to quit is a very, I want to say controversial, but I don't know if that's necessarily the right word. But the idea that we ought to quit does not go over well with many people. And the reason why it don't is because we've been told all our lives that winners never quit and quitters never win. And I say that is a myth. It's a fallacy, and it's exactly wrong, because we know that successful people quit all the time. In fact, if you think about it, we know that, say, Michael Jordan quit baseball and won a three-peat. The Rock quit wrestling, became a superstar actor. Schwarzenegger quit being a superstar actor and became a governor. And as a matter of fact, just a few days ago, Magic Johnson quit as the president of the Los Angeles Lakers. And then he had an interview. They asked him, why did he quit? He said, it's no longer making me happy. I'm not happy doing this. Now, part of his not being happy was most likely a result of his success at doing that job. Once he determined that it was not working for him, he quit. And I think the problem with most Americans is that the idea of quitting is a negative thing. So we don't want to quit because we are afraid that we're going to be viewed in a negative light. In other words, people are going to look at us as a loser.
How or why is it so hard to quit when we're at the top? Like Michael Jordan tried quitting at the top, but he was erroneously at the top, right? He had 3 more good seasons.
Right.
And I'm glad he came back. But how do we know? I mean, why is it so hard? Why do you see so many go like well beyond it? At least sports is an easy metaphor. But maybe even in business, you see CEOs hang on too long. Times have changed, and it's okay. Like I don't know that'd be great as a Fortune 1000 CEO. I'm more of a startup kind of guy, but they're going to ride that puppy up, all the way. Like Zuckerberg, he's worked out that, he's doing fine as a CEO of a big company, but sometimes maybe he wouldn't be, right? But you see them, they hang on, like they don't want to it's my baby, I can't give it up. And then they drive it back into the ground. Why does that happen?
Well, so the reason why people are very reluctant to quit is there is this emotional attachment to doing things. So 2 points. Number one, I want to mention about how this would apply, for example, in a business situation. But before I do that, there is something in the brain that prevents us from quitting. They did an experiment. There was a study done some time ago. And in the study, they took a jigsaw puzzle. They took 2 groups of people. Group A, they said, work this jigsaw puzzle to completion. Group B, they said, work this jigsaw puzzle to completion, except they prevented Group B from completing the puzzle. What they found out is that Group B, who were prevented from completing the puzzle, they found that Group B thought about that puzzle twice as much as Group A. In other words, the people who could not complete the puzzle, there was an intervention. They were prevented from completing it. They thought about the puzzle twice as much. The people who completed the puzzle, it was complete and they moved on with their lives.
So
the other group who did not.
So you mean they just literally walked in and said, okay, thank you for participating. We got to go now. And they left it incomplete?
Correct. And those people who were interrupted, they were not allowed to complete the puzzle. They thought about it twice as much as the other group. What the study found is that our brains are hardwired for completion. So that means that anytime you are doing something, if you are engaged in any activity and you are not allowed to complete that activity, your brain is hardwired for completion. The human brain wants to finish any activity that it starts. So therefore, if you're playing basketball, if you're in a business, if you are engaged in a particular investment, it is very difficult to give up that thing because your brain continues to go back and think about some unfinished business. So that's the problem. And that's one of the things that prevent us from giving up and quitting something that we ought to quit.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example. You're familiar with Ringling Brothers Circus, of course.
Sure.
Ringling Brothers had been in business for 146 years. And just last year, they closed their big tent. The reason they closed their big tent, Ringling Brothers had been sued by these animal rights activists. And they were, in particular, people who cared about the elephants. The elephant activists said that Ringling Brothers had been abusing the animals. So they were tied up in court for 14 years. It cost them over $26 million fighting these lawsuits. Eventually, Ringling Brothers went out of business. And when they asked the owners of Ringling Brothers what happened, Ringling Brothers said, well, we knew that the animals were bad for the circus, and we know they were bad for business, but we couldn't give it up because we feel that animals are so integral to the circus. In other words, you can't have a circus without animals. Now, this is obviously an emotional decision because we know that Cirque du Soleil never use animals, and they are wildly successful. So the idea that there's this emotional attachment, this thing in our brains that won't allow us to let go of something. And that's what happened with Ringling Brothers. They would not quit the animals, and they went out of business as a result.
So were they just too stubborn? I mean, they couldn't bring in an outsider. They couldn't run a study, some kind of survey, something to go, hey, animals aren't that big a deal. I mean, they already had trapeze artists and whatever, the dude on stilts. And seeing Cirque du Soleil, I mean, how come they can't put two and two together and go, hey, we're already doing some exciting things. Let's just do more exciting things. You've written a book on this, right? Quit, the Last Principle of Success.
Correct.
Where can we send people to learn more about that?
That book is located on Amazon, or they can hit me on my website, thequitdoctor.com.
Sounds good. Well, we normally do a little smoother conclusion, but I will talk you up in the intro and outro. I've got to get on to the next interview, but I do appreciate you taking the time to share this wisdom with us.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Wes. I really appreciate it. And I really would like to see us Americans as a nation get past the stigma and the negative connotations attached to this idea of quitting. If we can embrace the notion that quitting is not a bad thing, then we can disengage from those things that don't work, and that can help lead us to a more happy and healthier and more successful life.
Sounds good. I agree. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks. You too.
All right, bye-bye. Are you fulfilled merely trying? I thought that was a pivotal moment in that interview. As soon as I wrap this up, I'm heading to jiu-jitsu, and I think, am I fulfilled merely trying? I'm sore, beat up. I've gone to chiropractors. The last month, going to chiropractors, acupuncture twice for the first time ever, cryotherapy, taking new supplements. I roll with the higher belts, and I feel like I am just an incompetent nothing. But it's part of the journey. And the reality is I am getting better. When new people come in, I'm better. I beat them because I am acquiring the skills. But when you do it with your peers, a rising tide, floats all boats, right? Raises all ships. So it feels like you're not getting any better, but you are. So, like in that case, is it worth it? Yeah. Every time I talk to my dad, I called him yesterday driving home, and He's always like, well, you be careful and take care of yourself. It's like, hello? Doesn't he know that 49 is the new 29? But, he's all concerned. It's like, I've seen guys blow out their knees, get hurt in, softball, right? Sliding into second base, but I digress. Are you fulfilled merely trying? So, yes, I am. So I'm not quitting that. Now, in business, you do have to figure things out. You've got to make money, okay? Unless you're paid to be a research scientist or you're self-funded, you got to balance this out. But is it worth pursuing? Right? Can you hang on? Can you make something of it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yeah, you got to figure it out. Sometimes it's not. And so it's okay to know when to say no. In jiu-jitsu, I will probably tap 20 times a day. So I know when to say no. I know when to say enough. So who is helping you balance that out? Okay, that's what you've got to figure out. So get his book, and like all episodes, all the books are linked on my website as an affiliate. It gives me a few nickels and pennies and dimes from Amazon, but every little bit helps. The more listeners I have, the more of you sharing this, the more of you joining the programs like the 30-Day Sales Growth, the more I can give back in this form. I'm also rolling out an inner circle. It's going to be much more access to me, a much smaller group. And I'm working on a mastermind that will be held here in Southern California, here in Temecula, actually. I want y'all coming into the wine country, really changing your scenery so you can change your thinking. And so stay tuned on that. I actually met with a friend of mine last night in L.A. About helping me put that on. He's very technical, very SEO focused, web design, Google Analytics, Google AdWords. So we're going to bring you the very technical side, the things that I'm not great at, along with the systems, processes, copywriting, the words that you use. So you leave after a couple of days with a great network of associates and peers and progress being done on your business with a clear roadmap to execute. So when we roll this out, it will not be a cheap program, but the value will be there. But you can attend the first one extremely affordably to try it out. You're going to try it out, and we're going to try you out, right? We're going to see if there's a fit. So even though the core group of each mastermind will be at a max of 12, we may have 15 or even 18 in any one of these because some will be guests. They'll be trying it out. And you'll have full access, while you're there. You'll get the hot seat and all that good stuff so we can work with you on your business, help you get some value. So you join, right, as long as there's a fit. But by keeping it small, 12, 15, certainly under 20, it gives us time for everyone to get good time in the hot seat so we can work with you. But it also gives us time to have breaks so you can rest and recuperate, check your messages so you can come back and focus. But there'll be a lot of downtime, long breakfast, long lunch, long dinners at a nice place, swimming pool, big yard. You can walk the grounds, unwind. We'll do some wine tasting. It's going to be a good event. So stay tuned for that. I'm working on that as we're winding up the school year. My first and oldest son graduating from college. All kind of things happening. Never a dull moment. I just got back from Jacksonville. I spoke at the PTRA conference. So if you need a keynote speaker, they are inviting me back for their next year's conference. So that's a good sign. So if you need a custom talk geared to your people to hit your specific touch points and goals, I'm your man. HireTheBestSpeaker.com. Please give me a call. Let's see if there's a fit there as well. Okay. As always, thanks for listening. Now go sell something.